the majority of these videos, I've been focusing on how the migrant crisis have been affecting African Americans, in particular 2 cities, New York City and Chicago. But I haven't really talked about how the migrant crisis is affecting many African Americans in my home state, California. That's right, your boy is from the West Side, the West Coast of California, Sacramento to be exact, born in LA. But let me get back to the whole position. We've been focusing so much on Chicago and New York City, but let's go to California, where blacks are at. And the migrant crisis actually happens, for the most part, through California and through Texas. Why? Well, because people are coming through the southern borders. And those borders usually are through Mexico and to San Diego. And San Diego was getting like 300 people at a time until this happened.
If you want to find out what's going on the border, you watch Fox. Listen to this. More than 1,000 migrants were released onto the streets in San Diego over the weekend. There was no place for them to go. The county ran out of money and had to close a shelter. Joining me now is Bill Wells. He's the mayor of El Cajon in San Diego County. Can you just spread it out for us, spell it out, please? What happened, Your Honor?
Yeah, so normally we get about 300 drop-offs a day, and that's been pretty bad. But recently, the Border Patrol told us that we should expect 1,000 a day, and that's what's been happening. In the last 5 days, we've had 4,000 people that have come across, and that's flooding the streets. California is already the biggest place where homeless people live in the nation. So that's already strained our resources to the capacity. I mean, really past capacity. And now you add this crisis with no money to help and no idea of where these people are coming from or where they're going or what they're doing. And it's a humanitarian disaster.
Your Honor, are they literally just wandering around the street, sleeping on the street, sleeping on the beach, just wandering around is that what's going on?
Well, it's a mixed bag. When I was down there with Bill Malusian and they were dropping people off from the buses, and they were immediately being taken onto another bus that the NGOs were running, taking them to another location, which took them to another bus, which took them to the San Diego airport. And I think that's all designed to be this cloak and dagger thing to keep us from knowing. We're not supposed to know who they are or where they're going. But so we know that some of them are getting out of town on airports. We know a lot of them are sleeping in the airport, and the rest of them, we have no idea.
Not only are Central and South Americans coming through those borders, Chinese immigrants are even coming through those borders.
Migrants from China are now the fastest growing group of people entering the United States illegally from Mexico.
China?
Why are we seeing these growing numbers? Here's what we know.
New York?
Customs and Border Protection reported more than 24,000 Chinese migrant encounters at the southern border last fiscal year. In 2021, that number was just 450.
Did you just arrive here in the United States?
The migrants previously told News Nation reporters that they're escaping the Chinese Communist Party and plan to seek asylum in the United States.
And as you heard, San Diego is completely broke. They don't have any resources, don't have any money. People would think, well, what does that have to do with African Americans in California? They're going to be affected like other Americans, right? And I've even seen that commentary since I've been doing this stuff on the channel. I've seen a lot of non-blacks commenting about, well, why do you talk about only blacks? Does this affect everybody? Well, technically it affects everybody, but this is a black channel. And all we do is talk about how everything affects black people. So why does it affect black people? The African diaspora made a video about 10 months ago about how unhappy African Americans are in California. And we'll find out exactly why in this clip.
Gold banking rates came out with a study saying that in order to live in California, an individual needs to make about $146,000 just to be happy, right? Now, they also said that globally, one needs to make about $60,000 to $70,000 to be happy. And in the United States in general, one needs to make about $105,000 to be happy. Now, let's go back to California, where white people on average are making about $93,000 Asians are making about $116,000, and black people on average are making about $63,000. This is per year, right? So per that study, ain't nobody happy living in California because we know everything is high there. The cost of living is just super high, right? But let's go back to black people that are making about $63,000 on average. So by that study, yes, we can ascertain that black people are super unhappy in California because they do not make even close to the amount of money that they need to make to be happy. Now, I will say that I used to live in California and I'm still a California girl, but I live in Texas now, and I am a little bit more happier living in Texas than I was in California because the cost of living is a lot cheaper, if you will, or less expensive, I should say, in Texas than in California. But I will say this, and it's been said a lot, and we already know this, that a lot more black people are starting to leave California. And in fact, there are more black people in the South now than, as much as it was during, I guess, slavery and Jim Crow and all that other stuff. And it is due to the cost of living, especially in California and other places. Now, they say New York, it's even more than that. You need like $150,000 to be happy. And so black people, if you want to be happy, guess you need to move until we get our reparations check. Now, I know California is talking about issuing reparations, but until then, I guess you're going to be unhappy. But if they want us to be happy, they know what to do, right? Cut the check.
That's right. In order for you to enjoy a happy life in California, you need $146,000 a year, according to that survey. African Americans, we're not even half that, averaging $63,000 a year. Well, somebody can say, well, that just means they're earning less, but doesn't mean that they're unhappy. Well, you're missing the point. If you are not making that sort of money, then you're unhappy, right? But let's go to reason number one. If you're making below what is needed to be happy, that means at the lowest point, you're also the closest to becoming homeless. And that's something that we don't want to talk about. If you go to Skid Row in Los Angeles, it's not uncommon to find a lot of African Americans who are homeless. And you're going to see that more. And why? Well, when you're not making enough money and then something happens, you lose your job or something like that happens to you, you're going to be homeless. And then what happens when you get homeless? Well, two, you can't access homeless shelters. Remember this clip of the guy in Boston who is homeless and can't access the homeless shelters?
Can't afford to live here, but y'all gonna bring some other motherfuckers here? That doesn't add up. It doesn't make no sense. None. I'm homeless. I work a full-time job, 40 hours, and can't pay to live here. How the y'all gonna bring somebody else here? Don't make no sense. None.
Right, because some of that funding, a lot of that funding is going over to the migrants. I've already talked about Denver employees having their hours cut because some of that money needs to go to help migrants. That's the second reason. The second reason is, hey, if you get to become homeless, you may not even have a shelter to go to, because when you come to shelter, ain't no all black shelter. You're competing with everybody and you can't go to the migrant shelter. But here's the most stirred, damaging, and possibility that a lot of us haven't looked into. African American communities will become largely refugees and sanctuaries for migrants. It's already happened in Chicago. And this is what Kata Trust was talking about.
Many people say, man, Chicago, they really doing this. So yeah, could you explain that to the people that may just not know?
Well, let me just say this. I'm just a regular person here from the city of Chicago. I'm not a person that's known. And how I got involved with the migrant crisis is we got a phone call from our alderman. letting us know that Amerson Park, which is the park where my children grew up playing football, my husband coached football and baseball at that park. We got a call saying that that park was going to be taken away from the community and used as a migrant shelter. And we immediately got on the phone. We started calling the people in the community. We called all of our elected officials. We called past and former players, coaches, parents. And we, we're like, hey, listen, they're trying to take our park away. We're going to have to rally and pull ourselves together and try to see if we can prevent this from happening.
Okay, so you got out there and you start, making some noise with this situation. But outside of the park, were anybody else kind of rumbling about, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with this migrant situation? Why is our community being targeted?
Well, we had all been aware of the migrant crisis, but not as, prolific about it until they, again, when you start talking about taking away people's spaces and places, that kind of changes the narrative of things. And when you talk about taking one of the crown jewels in the Austin community, and this is a place where our mayor, Brandon Johnson, lives, or says he lives, let me put it that way. And we were just like, and because I kind of knew Brandon and had a relationship with him, so I thought, my husband and I have both been park advocates for the last 30 years or more. And you would think that if something like this was happening, we would get a phone call and say, hey, listen, we are talking about bringing these migrants over here. What do y'all think about this? Because if the brother had gave me a call, I'd have let him know, nah, brother, this ain't it right here.
That's right. They're going to move the migrants into where your historic African-American parks and neighborhoods are, which could do a few things. Number one, it can cause tension between the migrant groups and African-Americans. But also, you could possibly see spikes in criminality. We've seen spikes in criminality in places like New York and Chicago already. So that means to me, that could also be the same case if they move them into the Black community. The Black community would not get better. It would get, a little bit more dangerous. And if it's a sanctuary city, it might be hard to prosecute these guys. That's just the reality of it. They may not be able to get deported right away. So these three things are putting African Americans in danger in California. And you heard the other sister. She went to Texas. And you know what? Maybe that might be a good idea for a lot of brothers and sisters. Just get out of Cali. I know that I did. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Shirley Jackson, back at it again. Another episode of Fair Use. I'm out.